She betrayed me with our handyman, stole $250, $0 of our savings after pretending to fix our house, and now she's claiming ownership of our estate. Did I really marry a con woman? Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here writing about how my wife turned out to be the biggest con artist I've ever met. Honestly, I thought we had a good life. We had a nice house, decent jobs, 2 kids who kept us busy. I worked as an engineer, she stayed home with the kids, and everything seemed fine, at least on the surface. But then, a few months ago, I started noticing small things. Little discrepancies in our bank statements, odd calls she'd brush off, and her sudden obsession with fixing things around the house. She'd been talking about remodeling the kitchen, painting the living room, upgrading the backyard, stuff that sounded expensive but she insisted we could do on a budget. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. But then I got an unexpected call from the bank. Our savings account had a strange withdrawal, 50 gone. I thought it was a mistake or maybe some kind of fraud. I called the bank and they confirmed the withdrawal was made from our account, but they couldn't tell me who authorized it. That's when I started digging. I looked at the receipts she'd been hiding, checked her phone, and slowly, everything started to unravel. She'd been sneaking around, meeting with some handyman named Jake. Yeah, the guy we hired to fix the leaky faucet, but apparently he was more than just a plumber. I found out she'd been having an affair with him for months. It wasn't just sneaking around behind my back, it was blatant. I saw messages on her phone, explicit photos, and plans to run away together. The worst part, she'd been lying to me about the money. She claimed she was saving for the kids' college, but I found receipts for jewelry, designer clothes, and a bunch of cash withdrawals from some account I'd never heard of. Turns out she'd stolen $250,000 from our savings, our entire nest egg, pretending she was fixing our house, but she was actually funneling it to Jake and herself. What's worse, she's now claiming the house, our estate, is hers because she's contributing to it. She's trying to gaslight me into thinking I'm crazy for suspecting anything. She's calling me paranoid, saying I don't trust her, that I'm overreacting, but I've seen enough. I know the truth. She's a liar, a cheat, and a thief. Honestly, I don't even recognize the woman I married. I feel betrayed on every level. I thought I was building a life with someone I could trust, and now I see I was living with a con woman who's been manipulating me for years. That's why I'm here, trying to make sense of it all, trying to figure out what the hell I do next. She's still in the house, acting like everything is normal, but I know better. I've got evidence, and I've been planning my next move. I don't know if I want to fight for the marriage or just cut my losses. All I know is that the woman I loved is gone, replaced by someone who's been lying and stealing from me. And the worst part, I still feel stupid for trusting her in the first place. I thought I knew her, I thought I knew us. Turns out I was just blind. After I uncovered the truth, everything changed in an instant. One minute I was sitting in my office, going over some emails, and the next I was staring at a mountain of receipts, bank statements, and her secret phone messages. The evidence was damning. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. My entire world was crashing down around me, and I couldn't believe I'd been so blind for so long. How could she do this? How could she lie, cheat, and steal from me, and all while pretending to be the perfect wife? The first thing I did was confront her. I called her into the living room, laid everything out on the table, and watched her face drain of color. She tried to act innocent at first, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I didn't understand how much she was doing for us. Her voice was high-pitched, full of that fake bitchy attitude she always used when she was trying to manipulate someone. "You're making a big deal out of nothing, Jason," she said, flipping her hair. "I've been working hard around here trying to improve our lives. You're just jealous because I'm doing all this for us." I lost my temper. I told her she was full of shit, that I knew about Jake, that I knew about the money, that I knew she'd been lying for months. She started crying, saying I was just accusing her because I was insecure and threatened by her independence. She claimed she'd never cheated, that Jake was just a handyman who helped her with some repairs, and that the money was a gift from her sister who was going through a rough patch. I didn't buy it. Not for a second. I told her I had every message, every bank statement, every piece of proof I needed. That I knew she'd been planning to run away with Jake, that she'd been draining our savings to support her new life. Her reaction was pure bitchy deflection. She yelled at me, called me paranoid, said I was crazy to think she'd cheat on me. That I was just insecure and jealous, as if her cheating and stealing weren't enough. I saw her trying to spin her lies, trying to make me doubt myself, but I'd seen too much. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and deep sadness. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted her? The woman I married, the woman I loved, was a con woman hiding behind a facade of a perfect wife. And now I was left to pick up the pieces. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the stomach. My mind kept racing, replaying all the moments I'd missed her sneaking around, all the signs I ignored. The nights she stayed out late, the calls she took in secret, the way she'd suddenly become obsessed with fixing, the house she was planning her escape, and I was just too stupid or too blind to see it. I felt betrayed on every level. I'd given her my trust, my love, my life, and she'd used all of it against me. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal itself or the realization that I'd been living a lie. I kept asking myself, was I really married to a con woman? Was everything a lie? I wanted to believe she was just misled, that she'd made a terrible mistake, but deep down I knew better. She was a manipulative, selfish bitch who saw me as a mark. She used my love and my trust to get what she wanted, our money, our house, our life. And now she was trying to spin it so I'd be the villain. That night, after she stormed out of the house, I sat alone in the dark. I looked around at the life I thought I knew, and it felt like a stranger's life now. I was furious, broken, and disgusted with myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept asking myself, did I really marry a con woman? Or was I just too trusting? How did I let her get away with this? I knew my next move had to be careful. I couldn't just blow everything up without a plan. But inside, I was already planning my revenge, because I realized that if she thought she could steal from me, lie to me, and then walk away claiming the house was hers, she had another thing coming. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. After that confrontation, I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't just sit around and wait for her to make her next move. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. She stolen our life savings, 250, just to run off with her lover, and now she was trying to claim the house as her own. That's when I started putting a plan together. I spent days gathering every piece of evidence I could find: bank statements, text messages, emails, anything that proved her deception. I also started talking to a lawyer, someone who knew how to handle cases like this, because I needed to protect what was mine. While I was doing that, I kept a close eye on her. She was still in the house, acting like everything was normal, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She was bitchy, quick to anger, and kept throwing fits whenever I questioned her. She'd lie, deny everything, then turn around and accuse me of being paranoid. She even tried to turn the kids against me, saying I was just jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I knew she was a manipulative bitch who'd do anything to keep her lies intact. I started documenting her behavior, taking notes, recording conversations, and saving her texts. I wanted to make sure I had everything ready before I made my next move. One night, I caught her sneaking into her old phone, trying to delete messages. I had already backed everything up, but seeing her trying to erase her tracks made my blood boil. I realized she was more committed to hiding her lies than I'd thought. That's when I decided I couldn't trust her anymore. I was done playing nice. I'd give her one chance to come clean, but if she didn't, I was going to expose her for the con woman she really was. I also started planning how to reclaim the money. I knew she'd hidden some of it, funneling it into accounts I didn't know about. I contacted my bank and the lawyer again, asking about freezing her accounts and tracing the money. I had to be smart about this. I couldn't just storm in and accuse her without proof. I wanted to catch her in the act, or better yet, have everything laid out clearly so I could take her to court if necessary. I wasn't just angry, I was determined to get justice. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, pretending to be the loving wife, the victim of my paranoia. but I saw through her. Her bitchy attitude, the way she snapped at everyone, the way she tried to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. I knew she was planning her escape, maybe even trying to sell the house behind my back. That's when I decided I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. The betrayal ran too deep, and I knew I had to make her pay for what she'd done. I wasn't just fighting for the money or the house. I was fighting for my dignity, for my life, and for my sanity. I'd been once, but I was damn sure I wouldn't let her do it again. By the time I had all my ducks in a row, I realized I needed to be strategic. Confronting her outright now would only make her more defensive, and I couldn't risk her running off with any more of our money or trying to hide the house. I decided to set a trap of sorts. I arranged for my lawyer to serve her with a court order to freeze all her accounts and to demand an accounting of every penny she'd taken. I also told her I planned to get an independent appraiser to evaluate the house, since I suspected she was trying to claim ownership illegally. The day I handed her the papers, she lost it. She started screaming, calling me every name in the book, controlling, paranoid, jealous, yet I stayed calm. Inside, I was boiling, but I knew I had to keep my composure. She threw a tantrum, calling me a psycho, saying I was ruining the family, that I was just insecure because she was doing everything for us. That was her favorite line. I'm doing it all for us, even as she was secretly burning our savings and sneaking around with Jake. I just looked at her and said, "You've been lying and stealing from me. I'm not letting you get away with it." She tried to deny everything, but her voice cracked under the pressure. I could see the cracks in her facade. She was panicked, realizing she'd pushed her luck too far. That's when I told her I was going to involve the authorities if she didn't come clean. I wanted her to know I wasn't messing around anymore. I had proof, screenshots, bank records, messages, and I was ready to take her to court for fraud, theft, and breach of trust. She responded with more lies, more gaslighting. She said I was overreacting, that I was just jealous of her independence, that I was trying to control her. But I knew better. I knew she was just trying to cover her tracks, to buy herself more time. I also hired a private investigator to look into her accounts and her connection with Jake. I needed to confirm her moves, her plans to run away, and whether she'd been trying to sell the house behind my back. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless all at once. I kept thinking about the life we'd built, how she'd taken it all and thrown it away, how she'd lied, cheated, and stolen. I kept asking myself what I'd done wrong, but deep down, I knew she was just a con woman who saw me as her mark. The hardest part was realizing I'd loved someone who was capable of this level of deception. I wondered if I'd ever trust again, or if I'd just be forever by her betrayal. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to protect what was mine, my house, my savings, my dignity. I was gearing up for a fight that I knew would get ugly, but I was ready. I couldn't let her get away with it. Not this time. I was done being the naive husband who trusted blindly. Now I was a man with a plan, and I was going to make her pay for what she'd done. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I was constantly on edge, waiting for her next move. I had the court papers served, and the legal wheels started turning. She was furious, of course. She threw more tantrums, screamed at me, called me every name she could think of, controlling, insecure, jealous, like somehow that justified her betrayal. But I didn't care anymore. I had proof, and I was determined to see this through. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she'd stolen, especially not the house we'd worked so hard to build. One night I caught her sneaking around again. This time she was trying to access her hidden accounts on her laptop. Her face turned pale when I barged in and saw her frantically deleting files. I grabbed her by the arm and she started crying, begging me to believe her, saying she was just trying to fix her mistakes. But I'd seen enough. I knew she was planning her escape, selling parts of the house, transferring more of our money, trying to disappear before I could stop her. That's when I decided enough was enough. I called the police, not to arrest her but to get a report. I wanted documentation of her suspicious activity, just in case she tried to take off. While they were there, I also handed over the evidence I'd collected, screenshots, bank statements, her texts with Jake. I needed to make sure everything was documented, because I had a feeling she wouldn't go down without a fight. I also informed my lawyer, who started preparing the legal case for fraud and theft. I was finally taking control of the situation, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of it. This time, meanwhile, she kept lying, spinning stories about how I was trying to ruin her, how I was paranoid and jealous. She even accused me of cheating, which was laughable considering what I'd uncovered about her. Every time she opened her mouth, I saw how desperate she was to keep her lies afloat. The more she tried to gaslight me, the more I realized I had to cut her out completely. I couldn't trust her anymore, not as a wife, not as a person. She'd proven herself to be a con woman, a thief, and a master manipulator. The emotional aftermath was brutal. I felt betrayed on every level. I'd loved her, I'd trusted her, and I'd built a life with her. And she'd taken it all and thrown it away for Jake in a quick score. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her get so deep into her lies. But I also knew I had to focus on what was ahead, protecting my assets, my kids, and myself from her schemes. I started planning how to move forward, how to rebuild my life without her. In the end, I realized that the only way to truly move on was to cut all ties. I filed for divorce, knowing I'd fight her every step of the way. I also made sure the house was legally mine with the help of my lawyer. I wasn't going to let her take it or any of our other assets without a fight. I'd learned a hard lesson about trust, about how some people are just good at hiding who they really are. But I also learned that I was stronger than I thought. I'd survive this, and I'd come out the other side. I just wish I'd seen her for what she really was, before she stole everything, including my sense of security. The final months were a blur of legal battles, emotional exhaustion, and a slow process of rebuilding what I could. The court eventually sided with me, confirming that had no legal claim to the house or the savings she'd stolen. She was ordered to pay restitution, but I knew that money would never fully compensate for the betrayal. Still, getting her out of my life legally was a relief. I moved into a smaller place, far from the chaos she left behind, focusing on my kids and figuring out how to piece my life back together. Looking back, I see how naive I was, trusting someone who was capable of such deception. I was by her lies, her charm, her bitchy attitude that masked her true intentions. It's hard to admit I was so blind, but I learned a lot about human nature, about how some people will do anything for money, for power, for a thrill. I also learned that it's crucial to trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Dig deeper, ask questions, don't let yourself be manipulated. The biggest lesson, though, is about self-worth. I spent so much time questioning myself, wondering if I'd done something wrong, if I was just insecure. But I realize now that her actions weren't a reflection of me. They were about her. Her greed, her manipulativeness, her inability to be honest with herself or anyone else. I have to accept that I was a victim of her con, but I refuse to be a victim of her anymore. I've learned to stand up for myself, to protect what's mine, and to trust in my own judgment. My advice to anyone going through something similar: don't ignore the signs. When your gut tells you something's wrong, listen to it. Gather evidence, protect your assets, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. People like her will lie, cheat, and manipulate. They'll try to make you doubt yourself. But at the end of the day, the truth always comes out. And if you're smart and determined enough, you can come out of it stronger. I won't say I've completely healed yet. I don't think I ever will fully forget what happened, but I've learned to move forward. To trust again, but carefully. To value myself and not let anyone take advantage of me again. And most importantly, I'll never let someone's lies define me. I'm still standing, still fighting, and I refuse to let her con me again. Life goes on, and I'm finally starting to rebuild what was lost, one step at a time.